Just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
Welcome to Good News with your host, Angela Savage. For the next hour, Angela will guide you on the road to happiness while describing her own journey with the help of friends and family of her father, championship racer Swede Savage. Phone lines are open at 702-483-4444. Once again, that's 702-483-4444. Or you can stream us online at vegasallnetradio.com. And now, let's start on the path of happiness together. Here's your host, Angela Savage.
Good morning and welcome to Good News with Angela Savage on Vegas All Net Radio. Happy Monday morning. I hope you're feeling great this morning. Did you get up? Did you show up? Are you feeling good? Well, if you get there, then usually the rest of the day just kind of falls in place. So don't worry, it's just Monday. We can get through this too. With all this holiday spirit around, I want to talk a little bit about just gently reminding people to stay positive. Although we're going through a lot of weird things in the world right now with these shootings and stuff. The last one, which happened to be in my hometown, San Bernardino. I want to really remind everybody to just stay positive, to grab onto that holiday spirit and hold on to it like it's a special gem, because that's our joy. And as it turns out, joy is the one thing that nobody can take from you. So, like on social media, we're getting a little negative about who's responding how to these mass shootings and stuff, and who's putting their profile picture to support the town and all that. Well, I think I've decided I'm not going to do that anymore. Maybe that's what they want. Maybe by changing our profile picture to wherever they hit is like a sign of success for them. So I'm going to go a different route and not do that. And I'm going to fight for my positive energy, and I'm going to fight for my joy. And I really want you all to do the same thing too. And that spills over into social media, because that's where we're all hanging out. So let's try and be a lot nicer to each other. Don't get on people's cases because they're not responding to tragedy the way you think they should. We all respond in different ways. And I personally have decided to respond with love and joy and peace and positive energy for my people here, that are suffering, and hopefully remind you just to hang on to that joy like it's your most prized possession. You know why? Because it is. It is. Alex, are you on the phone this morning yet? No, Alex. Okay, good. Well, I have a special guest today, Alex Lloyd. Why don't you just give him a call, Lawrence? And I'll get back to talking about the holidays. This weekend, we busted out the Christmas tree, which is just made out of lights and stuff. But I still want a Charlie Brown tree. I want a real tree that I can smell. Enough of those fake trees, man. I've had it with the fake trees. Let's bring that Christmas smell, the pine, back into our house, and that helps me really get in the mood. And see, my son Cruz, he's 4 this year, and this is really the first year where he can appreciate Christmas for what it is. He's having fun with the Santa thing too, but of course we remind him the reason for the season in our family. But man, is it fun watching him enjoy Christmas for the first time. That is just that's what it's all about right there, is watching my kids decorate the tree. And it's not even perfect, but I don't care, because that's not what it's about. Let's just remember that this is our special time of year to love and to remember why we love and to be nice to each other. So let's really pump that up and not forget that right now, and hang on to our joy like it is the gem. My guest today is Alex Lloyd. Alex is a highly accomplished professional race car driver from Manchester, England. He is currently editor-at-large for YAHOO Autos, where he drives and writes about modern production cars. Alex also gets the opportunity to drive a wide variety of vintage racing cars and has produced videos and articles on those experiences. In his early racing career in England, he competed frequently with 3-time Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton and many other drivers who are now well known. In Europe, Alex won races in Formula Ford, Formula Renault, and Formula 3000. He was named the winner of the prestigious McLaren Autosport British Racing Drivers Club Award for 2013. Try and say that 10 times, which gave him the opportunity to test a McLaren Formula One car. After moving to the U.S., he won the 2007 Indy Lights Championship with 8 out of 16 wins, including the Freedom 100 at Indianapolis. He has competed in 4 Indy 500s and got himself a 4th place finish in 2010. Very good. He was also the 2010 IndyCar Series Rookie of the Year and holds the distinction of being the only driver in the history of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to win a race on both the oval and the road course. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. It's so nice to have you here. Tell us, what did you do this weekend?
Well, yeah, this weekend there was the 25 Hours of Thunder Hill, which is a race out in Willows, California, so just outside of Sacramento. And I think it's on its 13th year now or so. What started off as kind of an amateur club, basically a club racing kind of a prestigious club racing event where they raced 25 hours. At the time, it was the world's longest endurance race. Mm-hmm. I think some of the Europeans have now got a couple that are a little bit longer, but it's still America's longest endurance race. And in recent years, it's kind of turned into a bit of a pro affair. To be honest, you've got maybe 20 pro drivers from IMSA, all the usual kind of racing sports car formulas that are drafted in for that event. And yes, this is my second year doing it. Last year we won the race overall. This year we didn't have quite as much luck. The car broke down after about 2 hours and had a gearbox issue. We replaced the whole gearbox, went back out. I got my one of my other teammates got his 2 hour stint in. I got my 2 hour stint in, and then the thing broke again.
Oh darn
it! That time it was terminal. So instead of staying up 25 hours and racing through the night, I stayed up about 12 hours and then went to sleep in the hotel and got an early flight.
Oh darn it! Well, so how did that? I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel totally defeated at that point, or do you say, hey, what can I do? It was a mechanical thing. Are you pretty hard on yourself when something like that happens, or do you know that that's just part of the game and
it's part of the game, especially in a race like this, because we're racing with. The team that I was with, Davidson Racing, races only club races, and then they come and they sink a lot of money into this one race. For them, this is the Indy 500, it's Daytona or Le Mans. This is their big thing, and they put all their effort into this event. And I saw last year when we did win it, what it meant. I mean, there was tears everywhere. It was a really big deal for these guys. Like I said, it's become kind of the most prestigious kind of pro/amateur. Endurance race that there is, and it really is starting to get a pro feel. A pro team with pro drivers won it this year. So when things go wrong, I was in a car that's very much a custom car that they built themselves. They started off as what's called a super light, but then they've really taken it and modified it over the years to try and make it faster and better. And a very, very fast car actually.
Yeah.
But these things happen, they break, and, in some weird way as a driver, you're kind of glad when it does happen relatively early.
Right.
Because there's nothing worse than kind of going through
all
the night.
All the way to the end, and then bam, nothing, right?
Exactly, because, endurance races, those kind of long endurance races where you are driving to the middle of the night.
Right.
It gets tough. I mean, mentally, that's one of those things where you can keep yourself going, knowing that you're in the hunt for something. It's very difficult.
In a race like that, tell me where your mind goes on something that long. I mean, do you stay in the zone and you're just, or does your mind wander off into different places? Tell me where you're at in your head during a long endurance race like this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of kind of parts to it, because, there's the part when you're in the car. In this case, each stint was about 2 to 2.5 hours. So it's a long time, and given it's not like Daytona or some of those endurance races where people are pitting, every 50 minutes. We have a huge fuel tank that will literally last 2.5 hours. So you don't ever come in the pits. You don't change tires. It's, once you go out there,
you're out.
You're out. There's nothing to break it up. And mentally, what I used to like at places like the Daytona 24 Hours is that every 50 minutes the pit stops. So you kind of have something mental to like a check mark. Okay, I get into the pits then. That ticks off 50 minutes, and then I kind of reset and go again. Here you have absolutely nothing.
Nothing to break it up. There's nothing. Yeah.
Exactly, and it's impossible to realize kind of how far into a stint you are. I thought, the other day I was like nearly 2 hours into it, and they told me, no, you're just an hour in, and I'm like, I've got another hour and a bit to go.
Right.
But then, of course, you have so in that, you're just trying to stay in the zone. You're just trying to stay focused. It is easy for your mind to wander.
Uh-huh.
And on a race like this particular one, there's a massive discrepancy in cars.
Oh.
One car could be doing 160. We could be doing 160 at the end of the straight, passing a little Honda Fit that's doing 80.
That's kind of cute because it's full spectrum.
The closing distance is unreal.
Yeah.
And when it's nighttime and the lights and everyone's tired, it can be a very sketchy place. But then, of course, you get out of the car, and you may have 6 hours until you're back in again. And the trick there is to try and let your mind go somewhere else.
Right.
To try and disconnect from it, be able to get some rest so that when your next stint comes, you're fresh and ready.
Is that even possible? Is it possible to turn that off in your mind in between times? I mean, how do you even do that?
Figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I bet it's got to be different for everyone.
Some people can, but I cannot. Get myself. I've tried going back to the hotel,
right?
Setting my alarm for a few hours to get some sleep. I just can't do it. I cannot stop. Because you have that thought of, the adrenaline's still going.
The adrenaline, yeah.
There's still those little bit of lingering butterflies, but there's also that not knowing exactly when you're going to get back in the car. It's roughly 6 hours if all goes to plan, but at any moment your phone, which you leave on loud by your head in case someone rings you, is that could go off any time.
Gosh.
Say, hey, in 30 minutes we need you in this car. So that also, it's that.
So not only is
feeling.
it a very long race, but generally, I mean, it lasts a few days where you kind of have to be on, so to speak, in your head. I mean, so it's not a 20-something hour race. It's a few-day race, actually, in your mind. I mean, there's so much mental endurance that I'm trying to get to here, that must go into doing this without driving yourself absolutely bananas or having anxiety even, or letting fear creep in and that kind of stuff. So I think it's important to say that these long races are even longer than they seem, because, for the drivers, you can try and turn it off, but I don't personally see how I could do that, so I would imagine it'd be hard for anyone to do that. So I think it's important to recognize that it's a very, it's about mental endurance too, and not.
It is. I mean, it's stressful the week before because, especially if it's a race that means a lot, like in this case, it means a huge amount to the team. So therefore there's a lot of pressure on the drivers not to make a silly mistake and ruin, somebody's, work that they've been doing, over a whole year and all the money they've put in. So yeah, I mean, you get those kind of lingering nerves as you approach it during the race weekend itself, and especially when the race starts. It is very stressful. And normally in a sporting event, you have those stresses, but within a few hours, maybe even 4 hours if it's the Indy 500 or something,
you kind of start getting in the zone. Yeah.
And once you get in the car, you're off. You're doing your thing. Here, you just keep repeating, and it gets usually about midway through the night when you wonder, why am I doing this? Like, I'm feeling awful. I can't drink. I can't eat yet. I know I need to have like a bowl of pasta or something in the middle of the night because you need to get the calories in. And you're just thinking, why? Like, never again. Every time I've done it, I say to myself, never again. And then, of course, the checkered flag drops. You have a good night's sleep that night, and then you wake up and you're like, that was awesome. I want to do it again.
That was so awesome. So, tell me, when you're thinking, when you're having those moments, why am I doing this? Because I can relate to that. What gets you through those moments? Is it having it's got to be having all these people counting on you that helps keep you driven too, right? It's not like you're going out there for yourself. I mean, you've got a whole gang of people that are there with you, that's got to help encourage you too and keep your motivation going too. That's the thing with racing, you can't just say, I don't feel like going to work today. You go anyway, so you just figure out how to deal with it.
You could have a stint at 3 a.m. when it's pouring with rain. At the end of the day, you have a team relying on you.
Right.
You've got obviously the mechanics and all the team guys that are sat in pit lane for quite literally, not just 24 hours, because they've been up 5 hours before the start of the race. They'll be packing up 5 hours after the race, so it becomes a very long time. And these guys are up there doing their job, and they're not quitting. That whenever you need to come in for fuel or tire change, or if the car breaks, they're going to be there regardless of what time it is. But you've also got, in this case, 3 other drivers who are in exactly the same position as you, and that, hey, if one of these guys packs up and I've got my 6 hours of rest turns to 4 hours of rest or less, That's it's kind of a big deal. You know how hard it is on yourself trying to get through the night and get through your long stints. The cars are physical, it's tiring, it's draining.
Yeah.
You know that you can't let one of your other teammates down. You can't be
You just
that
can't.
guy.
It's not. Yeah, you're not going to.
Says, you know what?
Don't be that guy.
Tough. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm not going to get in the car this time. You just can't do it. So it's like anything. It's you knuckle through, you keep going.
You
and
suit up and you show up, and then things generally fall into
like
place.
Many other things in life.
Yeah,
many
right.
other things in life have a similar kind of thing where you just got to get up and you've got to get it done, and you do. And at the end, once it is complete, you think
then you feel great.
It's a good feeling because you have pushed through something.
Yes, and I can relate to that. Just having a new show, sometimes it's a little scary, and then a few minutes into it, then I'm just totally fine. I feel like I'm back at home again. No big deal, So it has so much to do with just never giving up, and things are going to be perfect every day. I don't believe in perfection, so just go do what you're supposed to do and do it right.
Exactly.
Now, tell me, how often do you compete in races these days?
I not as much as I'd like, to be honest. I'd like to do a little bit more, but I'm this year over the kind of from spring onwards. It's probably been one a month. So sometimes a little bit more. The last couple of weeks, the last couple of months, I've kind of had I think I've had 3 or 4 races.
Nice.
A couple of endurance ones. I did one in Germany, so it can vary a little bit. And with my work with YAHOO, some of the races is for that. As in, I went to Germany to do an Audi TT Sport Cup race that they have, and the American PR group said, "Hey, would you like to come over and race in it? We can get a story out of it." So it was kind of that was something with YAHOO, and then I do things like this, which is just it's I will still do something on YAHOO, a story on it, but I'm doing it primarily because they're asking me if I want to race, and yes, I do.
Isn't that that's kind of a win-win situation because you're doing the media part and then you're actually doing the race part. So, I mean, if I were an owner, I'd think that was pretty cool that you could race the car and go home and write a story about it. It's like a twofer.
Yeah, and that's kind of been my aim with it all. Is it's valuable that then to teams and to manufacturers and people that we can go there and get the job done in the car, but at the same point, you can bring the media to the table, and YAHOO, has many huge viewership and a very wide audience as well. So you can bring it to targeted race fans, but you're also bringing it to people, and that's kind of how I try and approach most of these stories is in a way that is relatable to
driver.
To anybody, and so something that somebody can kind of feel like they're getting in the car with me and kind of feel what it's like.
Right.
We do a lot of video stuff, a lot of GoPro stuff on the helmet, a lot of stuff with an actual production crew. So it's interesting. It's kind of a bit of a new thing for me, but I enjoy doing it. And the more racing stuff I can do, because obviously that's not the primary role of my job. My job has a lot of other bits and pieces to it, but I do enjoy doing the racing stuff.
Yeah, I think that's really neat. That sounds like a fun little niche you've made for yourself. Let's talk about your early days in racing. You competed against some pretty big names in Europe. Who were some of those drivers, and how did you do against them?
Yeah, I mean, you look back now, and there's a lot of those guys are doing various different things, some sports car stuff, in Le Mans champion stuff. The biggest name I raced with was Lewis Hamilton. I mean, we were kind of best friends growing up from age 10 until I moved over here, and we kind of lost track a little bit, as you do when you're on completely other sides of the globe. But yeah, I mean, we kind of had a good old battle in 2003 in the Formula Renault Championship, which was in the UK. We used to basically race together in go-karts, and I'd beat him, he'd beat me. We kind of had
so you had
really
a little
good friends,
thing going on there, a little.
rivalry.
Yeah, how great is that? That's cool.
So yeah, that was a fun time. And in 2003, it was one of those. I led the championship for most of the season, and then they found something with their car towards the end, and kind of clawed their way back past me, and off they went. So unfortunately, it was second that year. But it was very evident from the very beginning that he was going to be a very big star.
You knew it. Did you feel
successful.
You felt the star juice on him? You predicted that?
Yeah, I mean, he was one of those guys. I mean, he was picked up by McLaren at a very young age. I think it was like 12 or 13 or something like that. And at that point, he had access to the Formula One simulators, all these kind of things that, other drivers especially at that point, because no other teams were doing that. He had access to things that nobody else had. And they also had McLaren who were funding his career. So saying, hey, we will put you in the absolute best car, the car that won the championship the previous year, and then it's down to you to deliver. So we'll give you every tool possible to morph you into this world champion driver. But at the end of the day, you've got to be the one that can deal with that pressure, and you've got to be the one that can do it. So
right.
I think he was the first the first driver that I've seen that had really been, like I said, morphed in from a very young age and turned and created into this Formula One driver. So you could see that the raw talent was there at a young age, that the guy's very fast, very determined, dedicated. But then you have this huge organization with all the resources, that you could even imagine,
right.
Creating him into this giving him Kimi Räikkönen's data, Montoya's data at the age of 16, and trying to see if he can compare to them on the Formula One simulator, which, the Formula One simulators are $100 million+ simulators that
right.
are not like video games that we might associate with. They're
Well, that gives them
you can basically drive that and feel like you're in a real car.
It sounds like a nice group came and polished him all up in order to be the champion. We have to acknowledge that not everybody gets that same kind of opportunity. The talent out there, there's so much talent out there that doesn't have the financial backing to bring these drivers anywhere. So, I'm not saying that he's not talented. I know he's talented, but he also, got a nice deck of cards by having all these people around him to kind of mold him into what they wanted him to be, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of drivers are probably, I think I know a lot of drivers are, a little bit bitter about that, guys
right.
that say, yeah, I could beat this guy, why am I not there? At the end of the day, though, something like I saw firsthand with him is that, there was an awful lot of pressure that came with it. It wasn't hey, we're going to put you in Formula One, and after the X number of years, regardless of how you do.
Right.
There was very much we will give you all of this, but you will win. If you do not win the championship on this year, they will usually give him his first year to find his feet. The second year, the year that we kind of battled for the championship, it was very clear. If you don't win the championship, Lewis, you don't have, we drop you, and you have no more money. So your career is over. And I think that's why he struggled a little bit at the beginning of the year. When I kind of had the lead in the championship, was mentally, I think it was quite hard for him to kind of cope with that.
I can imagine.
I mean,
that's a lot
right now.
Yeah, that's a lot.
At the end of the day, it is. It's a lot for a young person to deal with. And at the end of the day, he delivered in every series that he got to. This happened year after year.
Yeah.
And he kept delivering. And then he got to Formula One. They put him in a car that at the time McLaren was, between, I think it was McLaren and Ferrari. There's really just those two teams that were going to compete for the championship. So in a dream situation, but against a guy like Fernando Alonso as a teammate, one of the most respected drivers that there has ever been. And to go out there and damn near win the championship on his first year, that says a lot. It says a lot about how they prepared him, but it also says a lot that, yes, he got all the tools imaginable, perhaps an unfair advantage, some may say.
But he did follow through. That. Yeah, he delivered. And maybe some other people wouldn't have been able to close it. He's a closer, right? They give him all the stuff.
Exactly.
And he closed. Not everybody would have been able to do that. So more power to you, Louis Hamilton. That's just awesome. Listen, I need to take a really quick break. Alex, can you hang on for just a moment, please?
Absolutely.
All right. Remember, you're listening to Good News with Angela Savage on Vegas All Net Radio. We'll be right back with Alex Lloyd.
Welcome back. Let's get back on the path to happiness. Once again, here's Angela Savage.
Welcome back to Good News with Angela Savage on Vegas All Net Radio. We're talking to Alex Lloyd. Are you there, Alex?
I am.
Thank you so much for holding on. I really appreciate that. Let me ask you, what made you decide to come to the U.S.?
At the time, I'd always had a bit of a fascination with American racing, primarily when Nigel Mansell, who was the Formula One world champion of 1992, came over in 1993 and raced IndyCar and racing the Indy 500. And, Nigel Mansell being one of Britain's biggest stars, made me focus on that a little bit more and just watch it as a kid and things like that. And in 2006, I had an opportunity to come out here and race in the Indy Lights. and I pretty quickly jumped at it just because it just seemed like a really interesting, cool thing. I'd always wanted to, to spend a bit more time in America. I'd raced there a couple of times on a few odd occasions and always really enjoyed it. And, this opportunity basically to say, we'll drop everything that we've got going on, myself and, my now wife, but drop everything we've got going on, go over to America and have a bit of an adventure. And before we know it, I become very attached to the American racing, the American culture. We both just kind of fall in love with the country and the place.
Mm-hmm.
And before we know it, now we've kids and built American kids and
Right.
built started our own little family tree out here. And
you've
there's no
put some roots
intention of
down.
moving anytime soon.
And so you live in Indianapolis, right?
I do, yeah. That's why I moved originally for racing. I don't have to be there now, but with kids in two of them in elementary school, it's a good place for to raise a family. This kind of year, when the weather starts getting cold, I sometimes question my decision of being in Indianapolis.
Right. Come out to Nevada,
general,
southern Nevada. The weather's perfect here in the wintertime.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of
is
snow.
That time of year where you think, it's really going to be cold for a few months. But,
Yeah, but I have to admit,
we love it out here. So
yeah, I fell in love with Indianapolis too because of the track, and then also because of just the amazing people that live there. And I tell you what, I don't care if it's freezing, icing, snowing. I miss IMS right at this very moment. That place is still calling me, magnetically. There's this draw that once you really experience the Indy 500 experience at that track, there's no going back.
No.
There really isn't. If you get that electric moment, and you realize all the energy there, it's addicting. It's something that I won't ever let go of. It took me so long to get back to it.
It's one of those places that you hear a lot of people say that kind of thing. When you go through the tunnel, you get the goosebumps and all that kind of stuff. And I think for people that haven't been there, it's hard to understand. They may have said, well, I've been to Daytona, I've watched the Daytona 500, things like that. But Indy, there is something absolutely special about when you go through the tunnel and into the track.
Yeah.
I've raced at a lot of different places, from Daytona to, Monaco, on the Formula One circuit and places like that. But Indy just grabs you. There's something you can feel the history in the place that you can't sense in any other track.
Right.
And absolutely, it kind of draws you in, and people do live here when they don't necessarily have to, specifically because they just want to be close to that. They want to be around it. They want to be able to, to go to various events at that place during the year because it is so special. And that certainly, I think, was what affected me. It was, really the first place I came to when I came to America in terms of racing. The first race I did was, one of the first races was the Freedom 100 Indy Lights race at Indy. And that was it. Within a few months after that, I moved from Florida, where I had been living, moved to Indy, set up shop, and haven't left since.
Yeah. Everyone told me you just don't know it till you get there and blah, blah, blah. You're like, okay, whatever. But it really is something that you have to experience in person in order to because it's something you feel. It's just not something you do. It's something that happens to you when you go there. And, people talk about the spirit of the track. And, I'm convinced that, there's a savage spirit at that track that will always be there. I feel fortunate enough to be able to visit my father like someone else would go to a cemetery. I can go to the Indy 500 or just to that track and feel like I'm visiting with my dad. So you're aware who my dad was, right? That he had a fatal...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So getting back to the track was something I never thought I would ever do, and I really blocked that whole piece of my life out because I just didn't know how to handle it without self-destructing, which is what I kept doing. So getting back to the track, it healed me. It kind of... the brokenness between my father and I somehow was mended, and so it was a really spiritual, wonderful experience for me that it's hard to describe. That place is magic, and there's just nothing else to it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I obviously can't understand in terms of exactly, what you must have been going through and what it must have been like being there, but I can certainly, kind of understand, like you said, with that place that it does some very special things to a lot of different people and means things to different people in different ways, depending on what it is
Right.
that may have happened there, or what experiences they've had there as a kid, or what they may have done there as a family, or watched on TV or on the radio back in the olden days, and those kind of things. It's a place that touches a lot of people, and you can see, whenever you go there, whenever especially when you race there during the month of May, you're witnessing all these different people that the track has somehow got under their skin. It somehow means something very personal to them, and the people that really do take that place.
And then
it's more than just a venue. It's more than a race. It's either a way of life, or it's a way that it somehow touched them.
And then I
think everybody feels that when you go there.
Right, and in some way, it's like when people get there, they turn their inner light on really bright because they're they're at the happiest place on earth. You know what I mean? So the whole energy just lifts up of the whole place because everybody's in their happy place, and you can feel that. That's not something that you can deny. And I feel really honored to be attached. I'm forever attached to that track, and I feel lucky that I get to be a part of the racing community, even if I didn't get here through the best of circumstances. The outpouring of love from everybody and support, has made up for a lot of the years of pain that I just couldn't quite get past. So just the community, the racing community is such a special, special family who has helped me heal too. Getting back there and actually facing the fire, facing my biggest fear, the dragon, it changed me. And now I have all this support from people in the community, and it's just really amazing how everybody stands together and really supports each other. It's a wonderful, wonderful demographic of people I'm so glad I got reconnected with,
It is, and there's a lot of other, unfortunately we've had some recent examples of, Dan Weldon's death which wasn't at Indy, but, in 2011 in the IndyCar series, obviously, and recently with Justin Wilson. And, you can see, like you said, that there is a big family, and there's a lot of outpouring of emotion for people that perhaps have either never met you, or they've never met, in your case, your father, or whoever it may be that was involved. But there's absolutely, I think it's genuinely some of the best, most passionate fans that there are. I mean, as a series, it's something that it has been struggling a little bit in recent years. It's not got the prestige that it did, obviously, when your father was racing there. Mm-hmm. Now it's trying to rebuild. It's got a little bit of a long road to go. But the core fans that are still there are those same core fans that when you meet them, they say I've been to every 500 for the last 50 years, and I sit in the same seat. There are some such dedicated people. That they think of the drivers, they think of the drivers' families, people connected, the team, the crew guys, as a family, and it really does have that sensation of a very big family. And again, I think that's why a lot of people do like to live in Indy. It's not necessarily just the track; it's that whole, it's everything that comes with it that I think is makes it quite a special, unique series and unique race.
Yeah, the Indianapolis draws me close, too. I feel like when I hear about all these fun things going on at the track, I just want to be there. Like this last weekend, I think there was a clearance sale or something like that, and people were on the grounds, and I miss that place. I miss it a lot. I want to talk about, you were involved in the big crash that took the life of Dan Weldon. Can you describe your feelings after something like that happens and you're so close to it? Do you look at things differently after something like that? How did you handle that, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, that was a very tough time. I think for everybody involved, obviously, the wreck, I think, had 14 or 15 drivers involved. I was one of those people. So there was, and with that, whenever there's an accident in the IndyCar series, all drivers have to go to the same medical center, which is often a very small hut. So you're kind of pushed into, a lot deeper into what had just occurred than perhaps you wished you were. Mm-hmm. So and you're also friends with this person. You also know how serious it is. It's, you're seeing, you're right in that waiting room when you're seeing, his wife, his people looking after his children, those kind of things that made it very, very tough, very, very tough to watch. The aftermath, I think the first time I saw it, because in my perspective, I could see there was an accident ahead. I kind of hit the brakes, checked up, and then somebody, it was actually Will Power, hit the back of me, and when kind of barrel rolling over me. But from my vision, I couldn't tell that. I just felt a bump at the back, turned, hit the wall. It really wasn't a big crash. I was facing the other way to the main wreckage, so I got out the car kind of thinking, okay, that's day done, unfortunately. Turn around, and then as you're walking to the car that's going to give you a lift back into the paddock, every step I took, the more I could start to understand
what was happening,
what had happened. But it really wasn't until the very first interview. You kind of at that point you see people being rushed into the medical center. You see his wife crying, and you're starting to get a feel that okay, something's not good here. But you don't know. And then I think it was on camera was literally the first time they have. I think it was Jamie Little who was doing the interview, and they hold the little screen so that you can kind of see what they're showing on the TV at the time. So I was literally watching it as the camera was facing me. Watched that, and I can still see whenever I've seen the footage since, my face is bright white. I just remember watching it, just like wow, it's something I hadn't ever seen. And then of course, from a media perspective, everything started blowing up. We were kind of in Vegas for another 3 or 4 days because there was supposed to be kind of an end of season banquet and all those kind of things, and we couldn't. A lot of the flights were booked. We couldn't get out.
Right. Everything goes into chaos mode for a minute.
Exactly. You were just cooped up in a hotel room. A lot of media requests. A lot of you're hearing a lot of bad things in the media of like Fox News and those kind of guys where they were starting to twist stories into,
already. Right away.
Putting blame on people and all this stuff, and there was just a whole lot of stuff happened then that in terms of driver safety and what we need to do to improve, and we've kind of we'd lost one of really probably IndyCar's brightest star in terms of personality, and he just had that infectious personality.
Right. They all seem to. Swede Savage did. Dan Weldon did.
Yeah.
Justin Wilson did. For some reason. I mean, you're all just beautiful and perfect, but it sure does seem like God chooses some really special ones to take home early. I don't know why that is. I suppose we would say that about anybody, that has a fatal accident. But I mean, they're all special.
I mean, you're right. And the Dan Weldon thing, it was spooky because that whole pre-race had been built up around him because he won the Indy 500 that year in a one-off event. He didn't have a ride.
And they did this promotional thing, right? Too, wasn't there like a big money promotion, and they were bringing in other drivers that weren't as qualified or something like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, they brought him into this race, and the idea was, hey, this guy's won the Indy 500 this year, hasn't got a ride. We're going to bring him into this race. He's going to start on the back of the grid, 34th position, and if he can win the race from last, he and the team get $2.5 million, and then a random fan will walk away with $2.5 million. And there was this massive media rollout on all the entertainment shows, E-News, from everything, not just the racing channels, but throughout mainstream media. This huge marketing on this guy, on this one guy.
Gosh, no pressure. Oh, no pressure for him.
No, exactly. But and then the fact that of all the people in the race, it happens to him. The one that everybody's been talking about going into it, the one that really has all the eyes on him. And then, of course, like I said, the media started turning it into a whole, well, he had all this pressure, so he was driving, in a stupid mentality, which was completely ridiculous.
That's because, so ridiculous.
The accident happened in front of him, and those of us behind just hit a wall of cars. I mean, there was nothing you could do. The whole track is, you're doing 225 mile an hour, and suddenly 100 meters in front of you, the entire track is covered with broken race cars. You drive straight into it. There's nothing
That's hard
you can do.
too. It's hard to hear that kind of stuff. Say, like, we're talking about my dad's accident. There's so many people with opinions and wanting to say what happened, and, they're not all right. And they really get into, after a crash like that, everyone wants to say why and how it happened. Well, they're not in the car. I mean, some of these opinions, it's hard for me to hear people saying that it was my dad's error, that ended him up in an accident. That's really hard to hear, even if it's true or not. But that's what, people do go that way. And that's part of the human condition, I suppose, is kind of going straight to the sensationalism and the media hoopla and all that BS that really, we should try and tame, at least in this sport, since this is the only sport to die for. We need to focus on the safety of our boys, more than the show and more than the money. I know that's not how the world works, really, but gosh, I just want to see everybody focusing mostly on the safety of these drivers rather than the money and the show and the all the hoop.
Exactly, and being involved in the media now. I get it. I get what they were trying to do. It became a big global story, specifically in America and the UK, where obviously Dan was from. And I understand that people are, they're capitalizing on it. It's getting big hits. There's only so many stories about, what happened you can do, so they start looking at different angles, trying to point blame, trying to, was it this, was it that? Because people are clicking on it, people are reading on it,
right.
And that's, there's advertising dollars attached to it. So for them, it, that helps them achieve their corporate goals. The hard thing, and what some of us did as drivers, those of us that could, decided that we need to try and do, because originally it was like, I don't want to talk to any media. None of us do. We're all getting, literally our phone is ringing off the hook.
Yeah, give us a break for a minute.
With people trying to talk to us. And, you don't want to do it. You just want to say, just, leave me alone. But then there came to a point where a few of us said, we need to do everything we can, because at least if we're on talking about it, have an ability to kind of shape the conversation. Instead of when they say, hey, do you think this was to blame? Mm-hmm. We can say, no, it's not even about that. Now, no, it's not. That's a stupid comment, and you don't know what you're talking about, unfortunately. But also, what we should be thinking about is, right now, is what a great husband he was, what a great father he was, and what they're going through, and trying to paint that picture of the person.
No, I really love
not
that
trying
you
to
said
go
that.
into the untrue, but also the dark depths of it all, which. Okay, from certain media people love to, that's what they're trying to do.
That's what they do.
We at least have a way to direct that into something more positive, trying to paint that picture so that people really know who this person was.
Right.
So that was kind of our mission for a little while there, while the story was hot. But, as you say, the focus shouldn't be on the bad parts.
Amen.
Or trying to point blame. Blame needed to happen behind closed doors not in terms of because Dan did nothing wrong, but in terms of why we were on that venue, because that venue was inherently unsafe. Every driver going into the race, every single one said, we do not want to race on this track because this track is not suitable for our cars.
Yeah.
A big wreck will happen. Somebody will get hurt. We knew somebody was going to get hurt. It was just the nature of what we were going into. Nobody expected that.
Right.
So absolutely, it needed to change safety, and in my opinion, it hasn't changed enough. There's been some modifications, but of course, we have another death at the end of this season. So things still need to go further in terms of trying to make racing as safe as possible. It's never going to be the safest sport. You're never going to be in a position where you can guarantee nobody's ever going to lose their life.
Right.
But if there's something we can take from these horrible deaths that occasionally do occur, is let's try and use that to move forward and protect the people of the future.
Right. And also, before anything like this happens, make sure that we remember these are human people. These aren't just superheroes out there getting in the car, risking their lives for us. These are husbands and fathers and sons. In 2009, in Indy 500, your wife was pregnant and her delivery date was on race day. How the heck did you deal with that? And how did she deal with that?
It was pretty tricky, actually, because, I kind of just had this kind of faith that it wouldn't happen on race day. I think because I had to think of it like that. My biggest worry was, what if it comes before? What if it comes on the Friday or the Saturday? And
then you're torn.
Once I get in that, yeah, exactly. I figured once I got in the car,
it's too late. I'm not coming to the.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm in the car.
Too late.
I'm probably going to finish the race. It's probably going to be okay. I'm probably going to be. Our first labor before that was 25 hours or something.
Oh,
so I'm thinking
it's never a fun day.
Hopefully enough time. But what I didn't realize is that it was only when I watched the broadcast back afterwards that my wife was having lots of contractions during the race, and in fact, she probably got more screen time than half the drivers because
my
the
gosh.
cameras kept coming and saying, How close are the contractions now? And she'd be like, they're about 5 minutes. They're getting quite painful.
Well, God
what are you going to
bless
do? Are you
her.
going to tell
my
him?
God.
No, I'm not going to tell him.
Don't tell him. Jiminy Christmas.
I
He's
know.
going 200 and some miles an hour.
I know, exactly.
You're going to find out later. So was it a boy or a girl?
It was a girl.
And what's her name?
And, Bethany.
Hi, Bethany.
So-
Thanks for coming on race day. Yay.
I know.
She's something special. You might want to put her in a cart pretty soon. Well,
I know, exactly.
Later.
Yeah, I mean, she could have almost, given the traffic, she could have almost been born at the speedway, but luckily she wasn't. Luckily, we did get to where we needed to be. But I mean, it's a cool story. It's one of those things that at the time you're just thinking, thank goodness everything worked out, which is great. It didn't happen during the race or before the race. But
Right.
Now certainly you look back, that's pretty cool.
That
to,
was
to be able
cool.
to show her when she's older and be able to say, watch the race broadcast and say,
yeah, she's
Yeah, no, that
special.
was you.
She's the
that was you that almost,
yeah.
almost was the one that had a baby during the middle of
Yeah,
the driver's actually in the car racing. So,
Right.
it was an interesting story.
So that gives me a special bond with her somehow. We're the Indy girls. So, make sure and tell your wife and your kids how much I love you guys, even though I don't know you personally. But I have such a big heart for anybody that's doing this. I wanted to ask you, part of my show is about overcoming difficulties in life. What do you do when you're stressed out just to stay chill?
Gosh, I mean that's the $1 million question.
Isn't it?
I think. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I never really know what the answers are to those kind of things because we have 4 children right now. Young children. There's always stresses.
It's crazy.
It's like exactly. There's always stresses with work, with with family. There's a lot going on. I mean, all I really try and do is just honestly just try and think of
Happy thoughts.
Think of exactly happy thoughts, the good bits, the things that when, like in my case, when 4 kids are going absolutely crazy, and it's almost driving you wild. It's that thinking. These are the times that you actually will miss in a few years.
Yeah, it's
when
true.
the kids are being crazy. These problems that in general. Fortunately, a lot of the problems that stresses that I've kind of been through have not been stuff that is comparable to what some people go through.
Right.
And I think that kind of when you think about that, it kind of gives you some comfort. You can kind of put some of your own stresses in perspective.
You're just
But
killing
at
it.
Exactly. But at the same point, when I look back at like that Vegas race and all those things, that took certainly a lot of healing, and it was very difficult for all of us involved because we knew Dan, we knew his children, we knew that. My wife was very, very upset by it because she, I was the very next car in line. I was 2 car lengths behind Dan, and so she also had that realization of, gosh, that could have been you.
Yeah,
It really could have been anybody. So that was certainly a very difficult.
But it wasn't. Thank goodness. We're coming to the end of our show. I don't mean to cut you off there. I'm hoping that I can get you back on again because I have so many fun questions here that I didn't even get to. One thing that I personally use to keep my spirits up is music, and I did ask you what your favorite song is, and I'm going to go ahead and play it for you right now. Thanks again for coming on my show, Alex, and we'll have you on soon. Thanks for listening to Good News with Angela Savage on Vegas All Net Radio. And with no further ado, here's Fleetwood Mac, The Chain.